Of course, every billionaire claims they're self-made, but how true is that really? Whether acknowledged or not, luck, unique privileges, and family history play major roles in attaining wealth. The common story is that Jeff Bezos built his wealth up from the ground, by starting Amazon in his garage. But to fully understand how Jeff Bezos became the richest man in the world, we're gonna have to go way back, and start with the story of his grandfather in Cuba. Our story starts in Cuba in the 1950s with the childhood of Mike Bezos. At that time, he was still called Miguel Bezos, and he worked at his father's company. Miguel's dad, now known as Jeff Bezos' grandfather, ran a successful lumber mill in Cuba, where he would purchase timber to be cut and sold for local construction projects. Miguel's mom had her own store as well, where she would sell handmade baby clothes and fabrics. They were relatively well off there for Miguel's childhood, until Fidel Castro took over the country and nationalized the family businesses. Miguel's parents got him a visa to flee to America as part of the Peter Pan rescue program. While most Peter Pan kids suffered poor conditions in foster homes, Miguel was lucky enough to end up in a Catholic charity home in Delaware, which he described as a wonderful experience. At school, he also met another boy from Cuba, who was already integrated into the local American culture and protected him from discrimination. Being 17 years old, Miguel was old enough to participate in the foster program and high school for only 1 year before graduating, and being free to live in the US as an independent adult. He also had some cousins already in the US, living in Washington, D.C., so he moved in with them for a while. He then got a scholarship for Cuban refugees to go to college in New Mexico. While there, he met a woman named Jacqueline. He finished his bachelor's degree in mathematics, married her, and adopted her son Jeff. This Jeff is the Jeff Bezos we all know today. Miguel by this time was known by his nickname Mike, and he got a job with the oil company Exxon, now ExxonMobil, and moved the family to Houston, Texas. This was the late 1960s, a time when the American economy was still stable, growing, and profitable for regular people. A time when the American dream was still alive, and companies rewarded loyal employees for their good work. As such, Mike Bezos worked at Exxon for more than 30 years with a stable, well-paid engineering position. Meanwhile, Jeff Bezos' grandfather on his mother's side was a regional director of the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission in New Mexico, but retired early to live in Texas near his daughter's family. Jeff Bezos grew up spending summers at that grandfather's ranch, learning science from both sides of the family at a young age. When Jeff was in high school, his family relocated to Florida, where he then worked at McDonald's while attending the University of Florida's Student Science Training Program. There, he was a high school valedictorian, a National Merit Scholar, a Silver Knight Award winner, and gave the graduation speech for his school. In his speech, Jeff Bezos told the audience that he dreamed of a day when mankind would colonize all of space to get people off of Earth and turn the planet into a huge national park. His parents helped support him in going to Princeton University then, where Bezos intended to major in theoretical physics. However, while in the honors electrical engineering class there, he found for the first time that he was not the best. Other students in the class were completing homework assignments with ease, while Bezos struggled to keep up. He was no longer the smartest person in the room, as he tells in this story from his time in college.
Taking a bunch of computer science classes, electrical engineering classes, which I'm also enjoying, and I can't solve this partial differential equation. It's really, really hard. And I've been studying with my roommate, Joe, who also is really good at math. And the two of us worked on this one homework problem for 3 hours and got nowhere. And we finally said, we looked up at each other over the table at the same moment. We said, Yo Santa. Because Yo Santa was the smartest guy at Princeton. And he looks at it, he stares at it for a while, and he says, cosine. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, that's the answer. And I'm like, that's the answer? And that was an important moment for me, because that was the very moment when I realized I was never going to be a great theoretical physicist.
Realizing that he could not become the best theoretical physicist in the world, but determined to still be considered number one, Bezos switched his major from theoretical physics to computer science, where he became among the top of his class. After graduating, he turned down job offers from big established companies like Intel in favor of working at Fitel, a telecommunications startup. He rose through the ranks there, eventually becoming head of development, but the company failed. Bezos then got a job at Bankers Trust, where he made software for managing pension funds and was soon promoted to vice president of the company after working there for less than 2 years, the youngest vice president in the company's history. At this point, he was a skilled software engineer who had worked his way up through the ranks of various companies by introducing them to the power of modern computing. But then things took a turn. Still determined to become number one, Bezos had his eyes set on financial growth and opted to join a hedge fund group, D.E. Shaw, in New York City, where he met his wife. From 1990 to 1994, he applied his early computer programming knowledge there to create advanced software models that propelled him in the hedge fund to significant wealth. He then leveraged his hedge fund wealth and connections to fund his new startup idea. In staying true to his desire to always be number one, he named the company Amazon because he wanted a name starting with the first letter of the alphabet. Also so it would appear at the top of web page listings. Keep in mind that this was before the dawn of the internet search engine. Jeff Bezos received around $50,000 each from 20 of his wealthy friends, and a generous $300,000 from his parents in order to start the company. With that solid initial investment and good early adopter idea of being the first major internet store, the company grew rapidly until going public 3 years later in 1997. By the end of the 1990s, Bezos had a net worth of $10 billion, but he didn't stop there. Bezos began using the company's rapidly growing power to acquire numerous small online store competitors as part of his mission to kill competition and establish Amazon as the everything store for the internet. From that point on, Amazon grew even more rapidly, until finally initiating its endgame of controlling virtually everything. With virtually unchallenged dominance in e-commerce, Bezos launched Amazon's new strategy of becoming the world's dominant website hosting service. As of 2021, its market share is a mere 6%, but that number is likely to continue increasing in the future as Bezos' original plan pans out. He also began his own spaceship company, Blue Origin, to compete with Elon Musk's SpaceX and begin fulfilling Bezos' longtime dream of space travel. And he also began dipping his toes into mainstream media with his purchase of the Washington Post. Then in 2019, Jeff Bezos and his wife of 25 years got a divorce in which he lost a portion of his Amazon stock, which she promptly traded for $6 billion and donated all to charity, 1/10 of her total net worth. Meanwhile, Jeff Bezos himself has donated approximately $10 billion to charity overall, 1/20 of his $200 billion net worth as of the making of this video. So clearly they both gained a lot of wealth through their various companies, but how exactly is Amazon, the biggest Bezos company, so profitable? Amazon's drivers run on poverty wages with forced overtime and schedules so strict they have no time for bathroom breaks. A similar experience plagues the average Amazon warehouse worker, where they run on an equally strict schedule with a maximum of 30 minutes rest per day, despite hard working conditions requiring lots of overtime, a lack of job security, heavy lifting, and weak safety protocols that often result in injuries. Beyond this, Amazon has recently engaged in large-scale social media campaigns against unionization, even going so far as to make public posts and ads refuting workers' claims, only to retract them soon after. Just check out the sort of propaganda videos Amazon's been releasing recently.
We work really hard and we're kind of intense.
We sweat, we bust our butt, and if I didn't enjoy what I was doing, I wouldn't be here.
Keep in mind that while all of this is happening, the average Amazon worker struggling in these awful conditions makes less than $30,000 a year, with poor working conditions, extended unpaid hours, additional costs out of their own pocket, and very few benefits, with no real job security. For some perspective on this, Jeff Bezos makes more money every 12 seconds than a typical Amazon worker does each year. Amazon also uses a similar strategy to Walmart, but in an online space, using its huge size and poor treatment of workers to keep prices absurdly low and stifle any competition. And while all of this is happening, Amazon has immense lobbying power in the United States government, doling out more campaign contributions and favors to politicians than any other tech company in the country. And what is the lobbying power mostly used for? convincing major parts of the US government to convert from their own web hosting platforms to exclusively relying on Amazon's growing service. Now that Jeff Bezos is leaving his position as Amazon's CEO to focus more on his spaceflight, media, and other companies, he's implied that he's done being a ruthless businessman rising to the top, and that he now plans to invest heavily in charity and companies that will benefit humanity. Whether or not he actually does this remains to be seen, especially with his highly questionable track record in getting to this point. But regardless of his post-Amazon plans, Bezos was the founder and creator of one of America's most successful and exploitative mega companies that will last into the foreseeable future. And now, you know how Jeff Bezos got his billions.